Morning. How's everyone doing? Time to make some coffee. Wow, we're really down to the end on these cups here, huh? Wild. Good morning. Hey, B, how are you? How's it going, sweetheart? Ugh. I had to... all three of my tracking numbers. Hello, what a good... I mean, they were all mailed together, so there's logic to that, right? Thank you, Brittany. Thank you. Hey, Dawn. How's it going? Time to make the coffee this time. Okay, you want to hear some really, really good news, you guys? I only have 20 orders left to pack this morning. So after book club, Secret Boyfriend's going to help me finish. Oh, you got your slimes this morning? Oh, that's amazing news. That's also very, very good news. Secret Boyfriend's going to help me finish. Yes, but two were invisible. It's weird. It happens. You know, I don't understand why, Gigi. It's like one of those strange things about soaking up baby time in Texas. Whoa, 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 whoa. Baby time? Rewind. What? Hey, Negligent. We're trying to find out if B had a baby. Or has a new niece or nephew or niblet of some kind. Hey, Claire. No, they really don't. They really don't scan every piece of mail. There's no new niece. Oh, amazing. Are they sharing her name? You don't have to share if they're not sharing it publicly, but if they are, please tell us. Mine was too. So yeah, it's one of those things. I always tell everyone just trust the process because I do take them. Oh, thank you. I'll take it down in a second if you guys want to see the thing out of the braid. I have it in a braid right now because I want to contain it while I work. But really getting packages when someone sends as many as like I do or like mermaid straws or whatever in one day, you just have to trust the process because they really don't scan the packages the way that they're supposed to. Like, I don't for the life of me know what our tax dollars are going to or why we're paying for the tracking, you know. See the unconditioned straw. Yes, this is my unconditioned straw hair. I hope nobody thinks I was actually offended by those videos yesterday. Sometimes I get in a mood, and if I'm really, I have to say, you're so A+, I didn't know shipping was, and if I didn't got a refund right away. Oh, which were Negligent, I don't think I know, if you don't want to say your real name on here, I totally understand why, but I didn't know that you ordered, but, it is true. I thought the nail tapping was funny too. Mine was never scanned and it showed up yesterday. Yeah. So this is something for Negligent Banana because she is, or they, I actually don't even know, so I shouldn't even say that. I know it's definitely not offensive. The nail outreach was so funny, but they don't realize that when they make those videos go viral, that's how I get paid. So I was like, hey, you know what? Feed the trolls, make a couple extra dollars this month. But because like my regular videos, when it's all just fun, is that a she, they in one word? I've never seen that before. Is that what that says? Are you telling me that I can say she or they? Is that what that means? New hair, who dis? Yes. So this is for the benefit of Negligent Banana, who is pretty new to us, or anyone else who did not know. But it would have been funny if it was that, right? If that was a way to say either one. That's funny. Can we make that a thing? Can we do that? Wait, I want to explain this, but let's go back to it. So when someone orders, if they egregiously overpay for shipping for some reason, it's not true, Lane. It's a lie. We were just talking about that. It's well on its way. We were actually literally just talking about that. If somebody egregiously overpays for shipping, I just automatically refund it without even being told to, because I have no interest in making money off of something that isn't mine. You know what I mean? So like, I want to make money off the things that I make for you, or the classes that I teach to you, or like whatever, like something that I've genuinely done that is worthwhile from me. But like, if I've covered the cost of my materials for shipping, which is part of the cost, and then the stamp, why would I want to pay? You know what I mean? Some people are just like, oh, keep it as a tip. I'm like, I'd rather you tip me for something worthwhile. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want the duff of that, you know. I'd rather be tipped for a good class or something. I don't know. And then there's Arbitrary Canary, who like purposely overpays so that she covers anyone else who underpaid, which I think is so sweet and so adorable. But I will get her paid back. Don't worry. I make sure that she is well taken care of. But what I was gonna say to Lane, because Lane was not in here when we were just talking about this, can everyone whose package had a weird scanning issue say what their weird scanning issue was to make everyone else feel better? Everyone who had something weird happen in scanning, say whatever it was so that everyone else can feel better. Like Liz, for example, said her package was not scanned until it didn't get scanned and it showed up anyway. You know, we should do these on a post one day just so that everyone knows that I'm not lying. Because I think sometimes people think I'm blowing smoke with this stuff, but I'm really not. And then the other thing that I wanted to go back to was the she, they thing. I like that abbreviation. It's not for me to say, of course, because it's not my pronoun, it's for other people. But, oh my gosh, people are so fast banana. I know. It's just one of those weird things. But, like, the she, they thing, I know that she didn't mean to do it, but it's kind of interesting, right? Like, we're limited to characters in so many situations. What if you want to say that I kind of like it? I don't know. The like, she, I don't know. I'm kind of into it. We can pitch it to the people who matter. I obviously am not the deciding factor, like I said, but not against it. Not against it. Does anyone in here use she, they pronouns and want to weigh in on whether they like this or not? I'm into it. Same Liz, mine was never scanned and it randomly delivered today. It's just, you know, all we can do is try our best. I was actually up until literally like 2 a.m. last night, finishing orders. So I just have 20 people's orders left to go, 20 total. That's it. They will be at the post office by noon, 1-ish today. Thank you, Nissa. And then I will get started on the rest of February's Patreon stuff. Ooh, important thing. If you are on Patreon, sorry, the tapping again. Look at me with that. See, you know what? This is the funny thing about that video. You really were. I'm Eastern time and I got the email at 3:30 a.m. Yeah, I was packing all night, Heather. It's true. So if you are bothered by tapping, you shouldn't be in the ASMR community, because I thought it was nice. I like the tapping. My avalanche is avalanching. Yay! I hope you make videos of it, Liz. Yeah, exactly. I thought we were all, not yet, Gigi, but I'm working on it. A lot of people had really great suggestions. So yes, tapping with the straw hair, exactly. And I hope no one thinks, please, if anyone wasn't in here when I said this earlier, I definitely am not offended by those people. There are a bunch of incels in their mom's basements who like are mad at a woman tapping on a car. Like, we're not bothered. It's totally fine. I got the answer from a lot of really lovely people. And there were some dudes in the comment who were really, really kind and gave like thorough explanations. I was like, good on you for being so lovely, because it was a legitimate question. But anyway, like that definitely, like, I made the joke that like, oh, they gave me money by making the video go viral, but like the initial impetus for making the video wasn't for money. The initial impetus was like, I really don't know the answer, and I had Googled it and Google wasn't helping, so I was like, well, maybe someone will know. The Cheetos for sure. And then once they start being trolls, then of course I troll them right back, because you know I can't help myself. But what I was going to say was, if you are a part of Patreon and you placed an order in this restock and you are owed a monthly slime of any kind, grab bag, jokester, Sparkle Pop, etc., your monthly slime is in your order. So we're a little bit ahead in that regard, and that was on purpose, right? So it took me a little longer to pack the orders, but it's because I put the monthlies in them, because I had to look up what each person got every time that I was doing it. That's why the Patreon orders are taking a little bit longer there. But as soon as I'm done with these, starting tomorrow, I will, nope, I haven't forgotten you, Betsy. Don't worry. I just have to get through all of the stuff that I'm doing with the like pre-labeled stuff, and then I will get back on Patreon and do that. You're not forgotten. Don't worry. And then tomorrow I will be on Patreon shipping all of the things. Hey, Addie. Addie's must be out for delivery soon, right? Hey, Lainey. And then we will get the people who didn't order in this restock to make sure that they all have all their stuff. And in case anyone didn't know, thank you, Lainey. On Monday, we are having an after dark. Quit tapping your nails. Don't do it. It's going to murder people. Oh, yay, Claire. That's exciting. Sorry, very thirsty. You have answered for me. What have you answered for me? Explain that after. Yes, it is. Negligent banana. It's where I make spicy slimes at the roll of a dice. So basically, just to clarify, After Dark Patrons get monthly slime, right? After Dark pattern. So there's no just After Dark level. There's I'm not sure which one you mean, Heather. If you could tell me which one you're talking about, I can tell you. But like every level says what it comes with, so that's good. The membership page. We are, just so you guys know, in February going to kind of revamp them. We're going to kind of thank you, Betsy. Oh yeah, I promised that I would show you guys what it looks like down. Going to check what I signed up for. Yeah, no problem. We're going to revamp some of the levels in February, and then I'm also going to give some people the chance to like switch around because its tire pressure sensors go off each other. Oh, well, I hate that. So this is what it looks like down. I actually think that the bangs are probably just fuzzy because they're still growing out, but I think the rest is like really getting healthy compared to how it was in Italy. If any of you don't know, the reason that I'm not offended when people are like, oh my God, your hair is like straw, is the reason is my hair got destroyed when I lived in Italy because I did not know this. I don't know if you guys know this. I found this out later. Yeah, but in Italy, the water has 7 times more chlorine in it than our water does. I did not know that. If I had known that, I would not have washed my dyed hair in their water every other day. Wouldn't have done that. Didn't know, right? You learn later. Was talking to my uncle later who is, oh really? Huh. It's actually working? I don't know how they wash their hair or if they're just used to it because of everything, but I found out, do any of you guys follow Casey Rose? She's like, she's a travel person, like she does like travel stuff, but also she lives in Florence as well. And she posted something towards the end of the time that I was living there, how she had to go to the salon and get a treatment because she had fried her hair. And I was like, oh my God, what did she do? And she said, just by washing it. And I was like, what? Yeah, they might have filtered shower heads. Yep, you're right about that, Lisa. And she is lovely. And so I was like, whoa, what is she talking about? So I asked my uncle, who's a water engineer, and he was like, oh yeah, there's 7 times more chlorine right out of their shower heads than we have in America. So your hair is just not prepped for that. And that's what happened. So when I came back from Italy, my hair was like distraught. It was in pain. It was sad. And I've been slowly growing it back to healthy. But if you look up here, this is all like new, healthy, baby, good hair. Down here, yeah, it needs to be cut off eventually, but I just don't want to have short hair because I have like a dysmorphia about long hair. Yeah, so when people are like, oh my God, it's straw, like I'm like, bro, you don't even know what straw's like until you saw what it was like when I was in Italy. I answered the day, because I'm a hake farmer. That's amazing, Brittany. You're right, I should have just asked you. I should have just gone to the Patreon chat first rather than TikTok because everyone on Patreon has some kind of special skill that I don't, which is amazing. Oh, if you're live stream, then you just get all the live stream access, but Heather, we are reworking those in February, so that might change soon. So before we get started reading, just because we have people who are asking, in February, I am going to take votes on some things that I'd like to. So here's the thing. I can't change anything about tiers cost-wise or where they are in the lineup while people, oh, thank you, Anya's parents, thank you. I don't want to say your last name on here, even though I do know, but I won't say it publicly. So as long as someone is signed up for a level, I can't move it, right? And I can't do a lot of changes. I can change the benefits you get, but I can't change anything else. Yeah, Gigi, I have similar issues. I had it was a whole Barbie thing. Reading the Priest and Spicy. Oh, spicy. I have a couple of spicy books in the works. And so what we're gonna do, I agree, Anya. So what we're gonna do on Patreon this month, as soon as I get all of the orders out, is we're going to vote on, thank you, Romantic Fantasy Books, main character. I'm definitely not the main character. I'm everyone's funny best friend. That's the character I am. Don't get it twisted. I'm definitely not the main character. I am your best buddy who has crazy things to say and shows up with rainbow hair and tells you to follow your dreams and to tell that guy to shove it. Oh, that's me. I'm that character. Yeah. A couple of people reading my book were like, "Oh, are you Emma?" I was like, "No, I'm Sarah Beth." I was like, "I'm the sarcastic one that's like, Google it." Oh, thank you, Negligent Banana. Yeah, a lot of people have said that. But anyway, so we're gonna take votes on what the different levels are and if people want to like shift them a little, right? You know? What I'm thinking of doing is I'm actually thinking of moving Team Livestream to be a little bit less of a cost because they don't get a slime, and moving another. There's some things that I'm thinking of. We'll see, because don't forget, you guys, I made these tiers just based on what I thought everyone might want, and we've actually changed tiers like 3 times since we started, because you live and you learn, right? All I can do is take the feedback from you guys and change what I'm doing. And so every couple of months I've been adjusting. We didn't have the groups, we didn't have grab bag in the beginning. All that stuff is new. So we're just adjusting to the best of our abilities, and we're just working on it. Yeah, B, we're trying. So we'll just keep working on it until we hit it on the head. You know what I mean? That's all we can do. And we'll eventually, because like a lot of people want to be in the community, but I think the problem was we have too many people that have early access, which is making it stressful at restock time for people who are trying to get slimes. So I was like, what if I give people the option to have a live stream version and get to still watch the classes and all that stuff, but they don't, like, people who aren't worried about buying slime, you know what I mean? Things like that. So we'll work it out anyway. Because some people just want to watch After Dark, let's be real. And maybe there should just be like a $5 level that's just like, you get to watch all the lives, you know what I mean, including After Dark, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. We'll see. The lowest that Patreon lets you put it on is $1, so like I can't just like give it away. That's not an option on Patreon. I mean, obviously, you know, whatever. Anyway, let's read, and then we will get the last 20 slimes out. Hey, Renee, long time no see at book club. And oh, I don't know if you guys, I know someone was asking, this side of my hair is gray underneath the rainbow flops over the top because it's supposed to be like Wizard of Oz, somewhere over the rainbow situation. So, that's funny to say. Okay. You're welcome. Oh, that's nice. Where's that shirt? I don't think I've seen that.
It doesn't fit.
It didn't fit.
It's too tight. But I want to wear a hoodie. I think the other ones are actually probably in the wash. I guess.
Really? Didn't we just wash them?
We did. I think they're still on the.
Oh.
I wasn't even thinking of this.
No, Becca, I won't stop.
Stop what?
She was making a joke.
Do you want a smoothie?
Yeah. I wouldn't turn down a smoothie. So many bananas.
So many bananas. It will be banana.
The comments would be more chaotic to those lives, only downside. That's true. You're right about that, Brittany. Haley, it does, we were just talking about this. When I lived in Italy, it was a big issue. if you're asking if the color is hard to maintain, yeah, it is. It is.
The color's what?
Hard to maintain. Means I have to wash my hair in ice cold water. It's very cold. Very cold.
You can have this stuff, right?
I think so. I think we looked at it last time and saw that I could have it. Will you send that? Send me a link to it, Lainey? What?
I'm gonna double check.
Yeah.
It says added, but
It does?
I thought they didn't have.
Maybe it was a different one last time? Let's look.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, this has cane sugar in it. This is not the same one then, because we definitely looked at the last one.
Alright, shit,
That's
sorry.
alright. You have it. Put it in yours. Enjoy it. Oh, Miles has a new thing he says when he's mad. You're a parasite. Honestly, that's a genius insult. Her 4-year-old has started telling people they're parasites when he's angry. That's genius.
He had to have heard it somewhere.
I don't care. I love it anyway. I want to do that. I'm going to start calling people parasites when they're mean to me. You're a parasite. He doesn't know what it means. You're a cockroach. You're a piece of shrimp from the bottom of the ocean. All right. He doesn't know what it means because I asked. That's good. You lamp liquor. All right. This is chapter 4. God must have spent a little less time on me. Feeling a sense of disapproval for loving pop culture was always challenging to deal with, but it took on a new afterlife during my religious phase when I was told the church was at war with the culture, and my participation in worldly interests would impact my salvation. This confused me, because I'm pretty sure we had other wars to worry about besides J-Lo's Versace dress at the Grammys in the early 2000s, but okie dokie. Speaking of J-Lo's dress, did you guys know, I found out yesterday, that green dress was the reason that Google Images was invented?
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm willing to be corrected, but I heard that yesterday.
Do you have more information on that?
I don't. I was going to Google it today. The inspiration for Google Images. Yeah. They're saying they're very doubtful this morning.
I am.
Can someone Google it while we're reading this and let us know? Because I've heard that too, but I don't know if it's true. How are we going to find out if it's true? You have heard it? You've all heard it before? We have to find out. Someone must Google this. I can't Google it because you're on my Google device, you guys. All right, let's keep reading, but someone can look it up, right? Because some of you have the ability to watch it. Thank you, Katie. Like most fear and shame-based tactics, they don't inspire change. They just encourage you to hide. True. And I wonder if around the same time I was hiding behind a screen, I also hid a big reason that I stuck around the church despite the doomsday vibes, because I heard heaven was a gated community. You missed the conundrum? What conundrum? To Google? Did Google Images get invented because of J-Lo's dress? Confirmed. Google blogged about it. Google blogged about it.
I'm telling you right now that it's
Google blogged about it.
It's a more complicated answer than that. Google is a corporation, and it sounds nice.
But they said it was an inspiration. Because so many people wanted to look up pictures of her naked that they invented a way for people to do that. We're reading one in a Millennial, Alexa. Negligent Banana's with you and doesn't believe. Wow, harsh, you guys. Yeah, the green dress, Katie. Everyone knows the dress. You know what dress I'm talking about, right?
No.
You don't?
I'm not a J-Lo person.
No, you don't have to be a J-Lo person to know the dress. I'm not a J-Lo person either.
I don't pay attention to.
Yeah. The team realized that they weren't able to directly surface the results that people wanted. Wow. Interesting. Well, I think it's interesting. I like it. I want it to be real. I'm going to let it be real in my world. I'll ask my husband. He used to cha-cha until they closed. He knows too much. Huh. Aw, negligent banana, that's very sweet. If MASH couldn't get me a mansion, who knows? Maybe I was destined for one in the sky. Jokes aside, I've always been keenly aware of how my love for surface-level things felt at odds with my deep longing for purpose and meaning. I can hardly remember a version of myself who wasn't incredibly distracted by my own existential curiosity from a young age.
I was interested in how religion could fill that void. I grew up going to a more low-key Methodist church with my family or mass with my relatives, and my early experience with faith was much more about love and light than fire and brimstone, unlike the evangelical adjacent churches and camps that I later attended with friends. I liked having someone I trusted when I was afraid, someone I could ask to keep my family safe, and someone to talk to when my friends breached the no sleeping clause of the Up All Night Club contract. Nowadays, I find I mostly became born again on airplanes, often defaulting to my old conversations with the big guy when I felt turbulence or right before landing, which kind of warms my heart. It's interesting how you can intellectualize a situation all you want, but you still don't lose your reflexes where the Spirit Airlines meets bone. Religion is a hard topic to breach. I understand and respect its sanctity, but I also think the taboo nature can can absolve religious organizations of well-intentioned criticism and create space for improvement and accountability. I'm a big believer in talking and joking about it, though admittedly, I have a level of comfort towards speaking about faith casually because I have the privilege of being part of a family who will support me regardless of my religious beliefs. I know that's an incredibly difficult factor for many people. When they begin to doubt or push back, the community-related elements of religion make it hard to ask questions or find a safe space. I'm not here to talk anyone out of anything. I'd rather make a case for the importance of being discerning towards the figures of authority, mentors, and influences that teach young people about their hearts, bodies, and souls. I'm not against religion. I'm against how people with spiritual authority use religion to control, ostracize, and oppress, and how Christian doctrine can be conveniently interpreted to further a time period's social or political agenda. She's right. We're gonna smoothie dance. Is everyone ready to smoothie dance? Smoothie dance. What's the matter?
Yeah.
We're ready. You made it just in time for the smoothie dance, Grace. Yay! I agree, Jed. Big time agree. Big agree. Big agree with you and what you said. Peachy. Given its existence across, millenniums, Christianity is the farthest thing from being specific to millennials. However, in my experience, I'd argue that there was something about the 90s and aughts Christian youth group culture in the US that uncharacteristically permeated pop culture. From WWJD bracelets to worship music from bands like Relient K and DC Talk. Oh man, did anyone else have those? I definitely did. To the evangelical funding of abstinence-only public school sex education programs on the heels of True Love Waits phenomenon. These influences were very present both in secular and non-secular spaces. So when the opportunity arose in the late 90s to attend a Southern Baptist church camp, I didn't even flinch. Going to a summer camp with vaguely religious agenda wasn't the exception. In my reference group, it's just what you did. I can see now that I have nothing to blame for how I started down this path other than my tendency to be quite taken with two things. Number one, the glamour of water sports, and number two, my love for live music. In the 90s, I started going to said religious camp because it was a hard pass up the appeal of water skiing as an activity. It was hard to pass up the appeal of water skiing as an activity. So about Relient K, Addie. Relient K, and she's right about, thank you so much. She's right about how they managed to sneak into popular culture, not just Relient K, but religious junk in general in the 90s and early aughts, because we had bands like Relient K and so on who were it was the scariest mosh pit you've ever been in. Yeah, they the Walk to Remember movie with Mandy Moore. Relient K is on that soundtrack and in that movie. They're a religious band who made it into a major motion picture. Like, what? Why are they? I mean, they're great. I actually love Reliant K. They make good music, but and they actually are of the less bigoted persuasion. Do any of you guys follow? And Switchfoot, yes. Do any of you follow Semler here on TikTok? The musician. I love them, by the way. I think they're great. Really, Jen? If they are, I didn't know that. I was a huge Switchfoot fan also. Do any of you follow Semler? Semler is an artist who has done some really interesting things, if any of you haven't looked it up, where they are kind of like reconstructing how they feel about their religious upbringing through music. And it's great music, actually, but they've listed it on the Christian charts, and they've topped the Christian charts despite the fact that they are, thank you, Maddie, non-binary and married to a woman. Those bands are Christian music, Katie. Yeah. And it's interesting. People get real big mad that they're topping the Christian charts. But they have a lot of interesting things to say also. And they were raised in, what do you call it? Like in a Texas, like preacher household kind of thing. Yeah. It's really interesting. Highly worth looking up, by the way. Oh, also, if anyone... Never mind. We'll talk about that another time. Let's get back to reading. While it's alarming that I was ready to trade my soul for some recreational boating on a man-made lake, I'm not sure I'm alone in my childhood intrigue of wealthy friends and waterfront homes whose summers were steeped in the mystique of the joie de vivre of tubing culture. Ultimately, my pursuit of water sports wasn't entirely in vain. One summer, I made my mark and was given a superlative at the end of the week. Most Christ-like at water skiing. Oh my God. On the back of the award, my camp counselor wrote, Katie, remember, water skiing is nothing and Jesus is everything. To this day, I cannot figure out what the award is supposed to mean. Was it my middle part and shoulder-length hair? A what would Jesus do hairdo, if you will? Was I so bad that they gave it to me out of pity? I guess we'll never know. But a mediocre child does not take the receiving of an accolade lightly. I probably chose to believe it meant I was so good that it was like I was walking on water. So I have it hung in my office to this day, less to my other less than notable mentions. This award was part of a broader era during middle school and parts of high school where I made my rounds through various friends' church youth groups, camps, lock-ins, small groups, retreats, and Bible studies. Did any of you guys do lock-ins? My mom would not let me participate in those. That was not a thing she was willing to do. My mom is very religious, but she was not willing to let me be with a bunch of religious camp counselors that are too old to be with young girls in church locked up forever. No, 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 no. Your mom ran the lock-ins, that's different. If your mom was running the lock-ins, then you could be there, but my mom was not running the lock-ins and did not let me go. No, no, no. Not a fan. All of these places had one thing in common that really lured me in, even more than water sports: top-notch live music. If you think I'm talking about the run-of-the-mill hymns in the cathedral, it's not quite the same. No offense to Mass, but I found that Catholic services lack in the Goosebumps department. Historians say King Henry VIII's divorce was a major turning point in the Protestant Reformation, but I'm willing to bet the marital dissolution was a cover for the pursuit of real solution in getting people engaged with the Holy Spirit chord progressions. Author and linguist Amanda Montell pointed out to me the power of these progressions when she came on my podcast, and it completely changed how I look back on my religious experiences. Had I known this, it would have saved me a lot of time when I felt stuck trying to reconcile the vibes inside and out of worship music venues. It's actually true. She's right. In the late 90s and early aughts, they did get some bangers in Christian music, and it really did make people feel like, yeah, it's true, Addie. They upped their game quite a bit in that time period. Yeah. Apparently, goosebumps aren't necessarily a product of the spirit moving through you. They can also be a product of collective effervescence. Another way I've heard this phenomenon categorized, where harmonious energy and good feelings are exchanged when engaging with shared purpose. Some Protestant churches have services that are basically like concerts, and in my experience, they can be delightful and transcendental. I know, right? Well, I kind of did, Becca. I mean, it's about the millennial experience. Our entire experience is trauma. Transcendental Frisian Fest, especially at mega churches. You know, the kind where the hype beast youth pastor's mouth is saying he's wholly surrendered to Christ, but his sneakers are saying, I slept outside of the Nike store all night. When you're amid a large group of people singing lengthy, slow-building ballads about love, life, and salvation, it's led by people who seem cool and modern as if it's a rock concert, and then it feels hypnotizing. It becomes easy to imagine the Holy Spirit is moving through you when you're listening to bangers like I Can Only Imagine. And between the music and activities, I was having such a good time, I didn't even know I was being evangelized to, which is exactly why it's so effective. To get roped into this, all it took was one invitation to a ropes course or an amusement park, and like the Jesus fish necklace you came home with, you totally took the bait. Now see, I didn't have this experience because I was raised in the religious home, so I didn't stumble into it in the late 90s. I was indoctrinated much earlier than that and then worked my way out of it by the late 90s. But we definitely still listened to the music, like Autumn and I and whatever. When you think about it, the formula for these youth programs makes sense. We start going at an age when we weren't old enough to drive, we were too broke for the mall, and we needed something to do so that parents would approve of. It would have been hard for my parents to know anything other than it was good old-fashioned teenage fun, because honestly, it was fun. Fun in a classic form of sneaky and evangelizing. Who is I to say no to things like extra cheese pizza, laser tag lock-ins, water sports, and this is not a real word, shiveries-inducing music with booming choruses amidst an ideally co-ed hang. Wow, why could I not speak for a second? What is wrong with me? Remember the first time someone was an atheist, I was terrified because of, yeah. Maybe someday I'll have my sister come on here and talk about it, but my sister had to work her way out of a lot more trauma than I did because her dad drilled a lot of crazy fear into her in those early years, and I was already older and gone by the time he got to those things, or not gone, but not paying attention to him. But she was like, why is the answer when a kid asks you what happens if I do this wrong, you're going to hell? She was I was too little to be hearing that, you know what I mean? And so that's something that she won't even allow anyone to say in the presence of her kids, and she's very, very clear about that. Yeah, she's like, nope, you don't get to talk about that in front of them. They are too little. They cannot work it out in their heads. They do not understand. So instead, what she teaches her kids, and she's very good at doing this with Zoe, is that if something is scary, she'll say, it's pretend scary. It's just for fakes. It's for imagination. It's for silly time, so she knows it's not real, Yeah. If Zoe sees something scary on TV, that's what she says. She says, it's pretend scary. It's not real, and we can pretend to be scary too if we want. She lets her play games. They do. People get real weird, Jen. So this is one of those little blurp, blurp, and it's called So Random True Love Traits. True Love Waits, TLW, was the brand name at the forefront of a massive abstinence initiative created by the Southern Baptist Convention in 1993. And it basically turned into an anti-premarital sex marketing campaign designed to incentivize young people to save themselves for marriage, almost like treating one's virginity as a commodity worth heavy ad spend like a subsidiary brand of Procter & Gamble. The idea was to stimulate a contractual obligation utilizing purity pledges or purity rings to publicly hold people accountable for not having premarital sex. And in the mid-aughts, purity rings became a Disney star's hottest accessory, arguably surpassing the magic wand that they drew Mickey ears with during the commercial interstitials. At one point, purity rings were spotted on the Jonas Brothers, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, Hilary Duff, and even before that, mainstream MTV pop stars like Jessica Simpson. Now I find the marketing push for TLW and the Disney Star trend alarming. Adults were the ones sexualizing minors they were claiming to keep safe. In my opinion, regardless of how virtual you want to pretend an abstinence message is, The fundamental conversation surrounding the sexuality of a minor is the thing that's responsible for sexualizing them. I have to assume companies like Disney found a way to capitalize on this sex sells by realizing that no sex sells as well, and found a way for it to benefit their bottom line in the event that parents only wanted to support a network and merch machine of pure talent. I mean, we learned a lot about that in Britney's book, right? Not just Disney, it was all over. I'm not sure if I was more influenced by celebrities wearing purity rings in popular culture or the popular girls in the town I grew up in, but I remember thinking that I was almost trendy to be this wholesome/mysterious hybrid of a hot girl devout. I was fascinated by how my religious peers performed their verbal and emotional enthusiasm for the Lord. There was a specific type of religious teenage girl I longed to be. Did any of you guys see Saved? The Mandy Moore movie, and Macaulay Culkin's in it. It's a great movie. If you've never seen it, highly recommend. Cannot recommend that movie enough. It is genius. But Mandy Moore is definitely playing this character. Yeah, it's a great movie. Absolute, really, really well done. I think, honestly, I loved, hey Ray, I loved Mandy Moore as a musician when I was younger, but I do think she's a better actress than she is a musician, and very, very pleased with all of her acting works. You know, I think she's really developed beautifully. Very proud of her. They were often popular but not necessarily cool, and had mastered the evangelical prayer lexicon, complete with frequent and unnecessary direct addressing of the Lord by name when leading a group prayer. Perhaps they had a strong collection of Beth Moore Bible studies and Vera Bradley duffels, an ample sterling silver cross necklace selection, and maybe even a tendency to experiment with hair accessories like scarves, bandanas, or headbands. I can't quite explain this, but many of these lovely devout young women or camp counselors I envied often had beautiful curly hair that somehow seemed to thrive regardless of humidity, as evidenced by the Facebook album of their most recent mission trip. I unfortunately wasn't aware of the concept of white saviorism and or performative philanthropy at this time, but I was well versed in studying how a person could look cute as a button in church-mandated modesty board shorts, so there's that. Best of all, my church idols would often serve as examples of young ladies living out my dream scenario, landing a godly boyfriend with a youth pastor good looks who was willing to talk about the prospect of marriage at age 16. It's wild to think about these teenage boys getting on stage with their girlfriends in the audience and condescendingly telling us how they've established boundaries to reduce temptation, when I'm 99% sure all of them were doing it in the back of their parents' sensible sedans. This idea of scoring a godly boyfriend made me do all the same attention-seeking things at church that I would do at school, hoping to live out my John 3:16 age dream. This is sad to admit, but I used to obsessively watch what other girls did with their hands doing worship music because I was so curious to figure out the cutest way to be super devout while also being vaguely DTFK, down to French kiss. F wasn't on my radar. I usually settled on an unassuming palmed up, eyes closed pose every now and again so the boys knew that this mega hottie was mega holy, but it didn't really work. Regardless, I was swept away by pandering lyrics, booming choruses, long instrumental cliffhangers, and most of all, the elaborate hand choreography that made me feel like I could really school my non-church friends who only knew Michael Jackson's Heal the World from our 5th grade chorus concert. You can imagine the sheer envy on their faces when I showed them I knew how to sign the word awesome and God, and once again, awesome. I must have genuinely thought I was fluent in American Sign Language, but it was more like I only knew parochial hand choreography with a few proper ASL words peppered in that were generally a huge bummer. All right, bye Renee, see you later. You can only get so far having a conversation in sign language when the only words you know are things like death, grave, and blood. There was a believability and intensity to the type of religious peer I looked up to and wanted to experience what they were experiencing, but I always felt like something was wrong with me. I started to feel especially self-conscious with the jargon when people said things like God spoke to them or called them to do something, and I was like, damn, he calls you? I probably told my parents this was another reason I needed my own line in my room. My eternal life depended on it. I wanted to have God talk to me. I wanted to be called to do something or be able to see things like the Lord put it on my heart and pretend it wasn't a clear means to absolve myself of accountability for my harsh words. but I've never heard from him on the other end. The vacant dial tone scored my assumed inadequacy, that I somehow deserved the cold shoulder, or even though I worked hard to build a wardrobe of non-spaghetti strap tank tops because I was told I couldn't expose my shoulders. Fingertip length. Growing up, it wasn't just camp or youth groups that were strict about clothing. In my public school code of conduct also made it seem like there was nothing more scandalizing than shoulders, and belly buttons were effectively a private part. I'm sure I'm not the only millennial who feels confused by the clothes of today's teens, because if TikTok is a microcosm for the modern day teenager, their options now seem like the cream of the crop top, and I'm glad they have more freedom. I'm all for looser guidelines if it means kids no longer have to be publicly shamed by being made to change into their gym uniform for violating a subjectively enforced rule. I ran into this a few times. One was in the era of high school that I expressed myself with a cowl neck blouse and got in trouble for the draping being too low cut, which is crazy now that I think about it. I just thought it was cute. On what planet does a person put on a cowl neck to make a sexy statement? Last I checked, they're like the crumb crackers of blouses. Crumb catchers of blouses. Yeah, cream of the crop top is good. My other run-ins were usually due to not meeting fingertip length rules for shorts and skirts. The joke is, I wasn't trying to be a temptress, I simply have long legs, and not all femurs are created equal. But enforcement of the dress code rarely examined intentions. It just sexualized you by subjecting policy and thus often discriminating against the way that clothes fit people's bodies, disproportionately affecting some students more than others. Dress codes are another secular manifestation of purity culture, where young women are taught that they're expected to control other people's behavior through how they dress. I think the TikTok girlies just get dress coded every day. I don't think they do, Grace, because I know some kids who dress like that aren't TikTokers, and they don't get dress coded. We had a credit card link. It's wild. Yet in my experience, no one policed the staring or inappropriate comments or touching with the same intensity, if at all. Looking back on this, the audacity of school officials to pull a young woman out of class due to how a garment fits her body is some puritanical, patriarchal nonsense that we should all find truly horrifying. Essentially, it's prioritizing the education of a male student who gets to stay in class and compromising the class time of a female student who's pulled out and forced to change just in case she might distract someone, rather than pushing the person who is choosing to be distracted. At the time, I felt ashamed. But this is now something that makes me so enraged. I wish I had the vocabulary to push back when it was happening. It's fair. I recall a few moments where I started to side-eye things, like when I heard one of the girls pray before something pretty low stakes, like a rec soccer scrimmage, saying in the team huddle that we should all play like we're on fire for the Lord and are covered in the blood of Jesus. Jesus Christ. Again, for scrimmage, a take-home test of athletes, how was I to be covered in the blood of Jesus when I was covered in a musty gym class pine that already was interfering with my MK and A switching goals aesthetic? As a teenager, simply trying not to be covered in the blood of period stains on my off-duty double-rolled softies, not unlike my flow, it all felt very heavy for a person simply trying to survive adolescence. But if I was told it was right and true, and I wasn't experiencing what everyone else was, it was further proof that something had to be wrong with me, not them. When my God Squad, as we were often teased, tried to out-different youth programs and Bible studies throughout the school year, I noticed patterns from camp that landed differently when you heard the concepts more regularly. They were denominational differences between the megachurches and Southern Baptist camps that I was new to versus the churches I was raised going to, specifically more focused on God's wrath than God's love. And I started to feel an enormous amount of guilt and shame for very normal tweenage thoughts and desires. Entering my formal teen years, youth leaders and camp speakers began to endlessly proselytize about how we're all broken and unworthy, while shifting their sermons to topics like modesty, purity culture, and the dangers of sexual immorality almost exclusively. Suddenly, it was all so negative and heavy and shame-inducing. The messaging was designed to scare us into believing the way that they wanted us to, making sure that we felt guilty enough by simply existing, and it worked. I started to adopt a cause and effect mentality to every microscopic action and passing thought, labeling good or bad things that happened to me as direct rewards or punishments from God. In general, there was a lot of mixed messaging that made me paranoid about sinning. For example, it was incredibly confusing to be told we shouldn't think about boys, but then have group activities that centered on creating lists of the qualities we wanted our future husbands to have as early as 6th or 7th grade. I got in trouble because the first quality I listed was wears a watch, when apparently it was supposed to be godly. Frankly, I'm charmed by my early self-awareness of my problem with punctuality, and I find this manifestation proactive. But similar to making a list of qualities you want, only to be told it's about what God wants, almost everything they told us to do directly contradicted itself. At the time, I felt confused and couldn't pinpoint the hypocrisy. Now I think it's incredibly odd that I was told to dream about and save myself and make lists for my future husband, but not to lust after him. I was to know that sex after marriage is awesome, but not allowed to think about it beforehand whatsoever, and told that men are in control while simultaneously being told that through my attire, I must control how they react to my body. These contradictions would send me into spirals of guilt, causing me to short circuit at boy-girl functions where I was torn between this new directive of sexual morality and my desire for some good old-fashioned attention. A memorable example was in middle school at a rare co-ed function off school grounds when all I wanted was to be asked to dance. I wanted to have a first at something, to find the Kevin to my Winnie, and I still can taste the styrofoam cup I nervously chewed on the sidelines, cursing the crooked indent that my teeth left that meant my braces weren't coming off just yet. Do you guys remember those cups? I just slammed my finger in the car door and a friend said, God, I'm punning you. Awful. That's awful, Rosie. But do you guys remember those styrofoam cups and like biting shapes into the sides of them? I definitely did that. I'm probably poisoned for life. My friend's little brother was told his diabetes was... No. Outrageous. You don't pray hard enough. Jesus Christ. Not okay. Don't like it. He was 10. Christ. Oh, Anya, I'm so sorry. That's terrible. That's a terrible thing for people to say to you, Anya. That's really shitty. Even though I was able to withhold lustful thoughts, perhaps I saw some gray area because no one ever specified if some light grinding to back that ass up would cause you to backslide. Too nervous to engage in pelvic thrusts, I remember deciding to set my sights on an arms out, elbows locked, leave room for Jesus slow song. As I waited with bated breath for my chance at romance, I watched my classmates live out my dream of getting to sway with a love interest to the 90s hits like Casey and JoJo's All My Life and Backstreet Boys' All I Have to Give. I then heard the opening chorus to the Holy Grail of compliments for a holy female. God must have spent a little more time on you by NSYNC. As the song began to wrap up, it seemed like all my peers had gotten asked to dance under the magical, oppressive overhead lighting of this suburban neighborhood clubhouse for rent by the hour, but not me. Since an observer heals through analysis, this was one of my first memories of starting to assign a divine explanation to everything that happened to me. Was I being punished for wanting my future spouse to wear a watch, and God was using a song about time to remind me that he only spends time with people who put godly at the top of their list? Was it because during my devotionals at camp I spent less time thinking about him and a little more time thinking about the abs on the display at Free Swim? The way the song merged a woman's perceived godliness with the male's attention it would yield was a little too on the nose for what I wanted in life, mega holy, mega hottie. And I remembered thinking to myself, I guess God must have spent a little less time on me because I did something that made me unworthy of others' affection. It became an inside joke with myself that I'd sing in my head over the years, and when I really think about it, it represents how this place was supposed to be all about love and light, but dimmed a lot of my girlish innocence and wonder. I was starting to feel the weight of it all, the burden of my thoughts, the burden of controlling others' responses to my appearance, and the burden of having to think about all of that while I wasn't supposed to think about it, and the burden of thinking that there was something wrong with me for feeling at odds with it reinforcing my alleged brokenness. I'm quite alarmed when I think about all the dangers of telling young people that they're fundamentally broken, incomplete sinners who aren't worthy of God's grace and mercy during some of the most formative years of self-esteem development. I know this disposition is doctrinal and sacred to many Christian churches, but to use this preaching style with young women present is something I now think resembles an abuse dynamic more than a loving relationship with well-meaning hired powers. I struggle with how subtly and not so subtly the gospel reinforced submission gender roles by using male pronouns for God, who is allegedly supposed to be genderless. So why is it a he? I know there's a theological response to this, but that's not the point. It's kind of a baseless argument when the choice is to both use and punctuate male pronoun and identifiers. It embeds a default reverence, gratitude, and sense of not being enough towards male figures at the time. I can't speak to how all Christians are taught, but from my experience, we were told to worship a figure with male pronouns blindly. We were told we were worthless and broken without him. And although we can never question the standards we're held to, we must constantly repent for all the ways we'll inevitably fall short of them. And the only solution for the looming threat of wrath or punishment from this alleged father figure was to praise, worship, and obey harder. In any worldly context, no healthy person would endorse to young people a one-sided, emotionally abusive relationship that glorifies a power imbalance through a fear-based dynamic. Yeah. I didn't have this experience with men in my life at home, at school, or on a sports team, only at church. Yet I found something is uniquely pervasive about this religious mentality, given how much they integrate our spirit with our sexuality, resulting in a weird relationship with men in a romantic context that would take me years to unpack. I hate the term daddy issues, but I sometimes wonder if I developed a form of sky daddy issues during this time, navigating the constant whiplash I felt between love and rejection while desperately hoping for the approval of an omnipotent force in the skies. It was confusing to worship a figure who loved me unconditionally with countless conditions. It was hard to believe that my suffering at his hands was in my best interest, and it felt manipulative to threaten to take the keys to my celestial new construction in the afterlife every time I made a mistake. Yeah, Anya, that is stepping over a line. I know, right? Sorry, guys. We didn't know. We didn't know this is where it was going today. I'm going to start calling it Sky Daddy issues. We can all collectively call our religious trauma Sky Daddy issues. I get both kinds. It's fun. While I'm willing to acknowledge many cultural forces contributing to the mainstream success of things like True Love Waits and the era's obsession with virginity, when it comes to sex and relationships, I unequivocally blame my issues on church way more than the raunchy pop culture we were told to avoid. You've never heard Sky Daddy? Oh yeah, it's a big thing. My sister-in-law tells my OCD nephew doesn't think... It's terrible. It's terrible. The hypersexualized media they spoke of was labeled as the handiwork of Satan, but in my opinion, it didn't hold a pitchfork to the damage done by the evangelical church's shame-based approach to discussing premarital sex. My sister and I are kind of the ultimate controlled/exposed experiment in this hypothesis. We grew up in all the same ways: same household, same parents, same school, same neighborhood, same shows and movies, etc. My parents were reserved and they never pushed these conversations onto us unless prompted, which is honestly what I wanted as a teenager. So we weren't spoken to about family life and sex ed stuff at home in a way that stood out to either of us. However, I attended evangelical camps and youth groups in middle and high school, and she did not. Guess who came out of their adolescence with a confusing lifelong battle with this topic? Yes, 'twas the most Christ-like at water skiing in all her aquatic glory, or defeat. Still unclear. Purity culture is a term frequently used to describe the movement that involves promoting biblical purity to young people, mostly prevalent within white evangelical Christian, Mormon, and Southern Baptist communities. From a young age, many leaders in these communities will teach girls that their sexual desires outside of marriage are impure. They need to cover up so they don't tempt others, and they must abstain from not only sexual activity outside of marriage, but also thoughts and urges. Your virginity is positioned as a gift for your husband, and the conversation is usually void of nuance regarding personal autonomy and sexual identification, assuming a young woman, number one, wants to get married, and number two, will marry a man. Many times, I've groaned at how my celebration of girlhood failed the Bechdel test. But church-related activities place so much focus on this majestic creature, my future husband, it's like I was conditioned to think about him all the time. I remember worrying if he approved of my actions even before we met. It wasn't until years later that I understood how this language was part of a broader social purity movement, because it didn't seem odd. In fact, it felt familiar because it aligned with the abstinence messages we were hearing in public school education in the 90s and aughts. The legislation that outlined requirements for sex ed programs to receive federal funding was influenced by grassroots, mostly Protestant, Christian single-issue abstinence or pro-family groups. Many of these groups supported and strengthened the agenda for abstinence-only programs in United States public schools and gained political leverage in the 90s, successfully influencing the Title V Abstinence Only Until Marriage program in 1996 as a part of the Welfare Reform Act, followed by even more restrictive community-based abstinence education CBAE programs in 2000. A full history of sex education, and where I fact-checked myself, was documented by the nonprofit SIECUS, Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States, an organization dedicated to advancing sex education through advocacy, policy, and coalition building. Wow. These programs were central to the millennial sex education until 2010, when Obama eliminated most federal funding for abstinence-only sex ed programs, in favor of science-based programs. And then she's got a little link to where you can get the information for that. Wild. It's so wild and so true, because in Europe they don't have these, and they also don't have the problems we have. In talking to my Millennial podcast listeners about this topic, it's interesting how many of their recollections of sex ed, regardless of their religious backgrounds, mirror what I was taught in youth group, with the same conservative scare tactic, riddled rhetoric at the forefront. This makes sense when you consider the timing of the legislation. In 1996, the oldest millennials were around 16. In 2010, the youngest millennials were around 14, so very few publicly educated millennials were spared this curriculum influenced by religious propaganda masquerading as healthcare. That's an extremely valid line. Aside, what's the damage? Popular conversations about purity in my day often involve some sort of symbolic representation of a woman's virtue as a prop, serving as a dubious show and tell of that truly left a generation unwell in understanding their self-worth outside of virginity. For example, a youth leader might ask someone to chew gum and then ask them to spit it out, hand it to the next person, and ask them to chew it. Upon being disgusted and refusing, since no one wants your germ-filled, flavorless gum, the adult informs the minor they are like gum, and having sex is like being chewed, and if they let someone chew them before their husband, that's how disgusted he will be by you on your wedding night. There was only one piece, there were ones that involved a piece of tape, where a girl was represented by the tape, which would be stuck to a boy in class to represent the bond that's created when you have sex. When the tape was removed and attempted to stick to other boys, it wouldn't stick. And the lesson was, when you have multiple partners, you have already given away your opportunity to bond. Whether it was chewed gum, spit out water, crumpled paper, a heart torn into pieces, or petals off a flower, the message was clear. If you were intimate with another person before marriage, you would be perceived as used, washed up, broken, damaged goods, to be met with disgust, and thus compromising your eligibility to be a bride. And yet I have no memory of learning men would be met by their brides with the same disapproval if they were promiscuous. Purity culture often positions women as the object or gateway to male transgressions, centering their value as a human not only on what they can provide, but what they can withhold, and thus control. Ironically, purity culture is all about male control. The desire to control women, control their bodies, control the narrative, and men cannot control themselves. I think one of the reasons I'm embarrassed for this time is because when you're told you're a part of an elite club of people who know... Wait, what? It's because when you're told you're part of an elite club and you know people who aren't in it, it makes you worried for their salvation and that it's at risk and causes you to say some really weird shit. One of the reasons I never told my parents the details of these places was because at the Southern Baptist camp, someone told me my mom would probably go to hell for being Catholic. I assumed she'd find this offensive, and naturally I feared I wouldn't be allowed to go back to water skiing, so I kept it to myself because, well, priorities. But I probably believed it, and I subtly tried to save her soul in the meantime, which is insane because she's the kindest angel walking this earth, and the faith she introduced me to was always kind, loving, and forgiving. But this fear ran so deep that it made me question what I knew about my own mother. At one point, I cornered my sister in the bathroom and cried to her that she was going to hell for drinking alcohol. I'm sure you can imagine this was not well received. But that's what I was told, and I was genuinely deeply scared that Captain Morgan was steering her right to the devil's air fryer and she must be stopped. I also wept when I found out a guy friend had smoked weed and now wanted to crawl into a hole. I now want to crawl into a hole and die, thinking about how I asked him to pray with me about it. I had a crush on him, and I'm mortified that I was too high on my own supply as Christ's warrior to see the situation for the boner killer that it really was. Ouch. I knew I was a hypocrite because I was being judgmental of others in the God Squad for things I hadn't done yet, like drinking or drugs, but I still actively participated behind the scenes in the culture the church was allegedly at war with, like pop stars I was told were too raunchy, or lusting after the boy bands who were apparently sinful. I remember one of the worship leaders at camp referring to the fans of boy bands as being lustful airheads and accusing them of acting like basket cases when they should be on fire for the Lord. This was concerning because pop culture basket case was one of the core ways I self-identified. I remember eating a handy snack at the canteen one day, spreading my radioactive orange cheese on a cracker. Those were so freaking delicious, you guys. And wondering what was so wrong with being a superfan of the sights and scenes and socializing and screens that surrounded us. If experiencing pleasure was Satan's doing, and experiencing hardship and sacrifice was God's, deep down I worried I felt more inclined to go to hell as a hand basket case and enjoy my life rather than spend my existence being allergic to fun. Yeah, it's a pipeline, Becca. It's a pipeline. One memory that genuinely makes me shudder is when some friends and I called out one of our classmates for her sexual immorality. Oh boy, here we go. Because she went to second base with a boy in middle school. I vaguely remember us confronting her about how this was an impure, sinful act and grossly offering our unsolicited, manufactured forgiveness. Understandably, our friendship was never the same, and I now cannot comprehend how a version of me could have ever existed that was so comfortable projecting an overt judgment onto someone. It's so disturbing that accountability in the form of shaming our peers was encouraged. But I learned this judgmental behavior disguised as religiousness from sitting in circles with camp counselors or small group leaders whom I looked up to, where they talked about purity and the importance of keeping our virginity for our future husbands. And without fail, people would, for some reason, start to feel obligated to confess their sexual sins to the group one by one. I remember my peers hanging their heads while crying, feeling forced to confess that they participated in run-of-the-mill teenage intimacy, and suddenly feeling relieved that I didn't have a juicier testimony because I'd obviously Is this still visible? Did you guys see that? Did that come up for anyone else? That's funny. That's so weird. I got a pop-up that we have been age restricted on this live. That's funny. That's fine. Doesn't bother me. It was a pop-up. It was like, this live may not be suitable for minors. That's probably true, and that's fine. Doesn't bother me. Where did we go? Transgressions were often the focal point of my peers' public testimonies, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't live for the kind that seemed intentional, sharing their spicy stumbles. I guess I can only speak for myself, but maybe I'm the worst. But I sure as hell could not be trusted with this kind of tea. I remember every damn detail of a random person's strangely specific tale of heavy petting, recreational drug use, or routine corn habits. I tried to figure out which girl or guy in the room they'd hooked up with, which drug they were talking about based on the descriptions I'd learned in DARE, and wonder if occasionally glancing at a body part every now and then in between TV static on Skintamax was something that I could position as edgy tripwires in my walk with Christ. Yeah, they don't need it too. It's corn. How much more? Oh my gosh, this is like the longest chapter ever. Holy crap. Okay, I gotta get to packing the rest of these orders and stuff, and we've been on here quite a bit of time, so we will finish this chapter tomorrow because there's like still a ton left to go. The pop-up overheard us Yeah, seriously, I completely agree. And there will be getting into part 2. It's fine, we can read. Yeah. Well, we've already been on here an hour. She does have a lot. I mean, we all do, right? It's a lot to unpack. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing that it's a long chapter, but I do want to get these to the post office before the post office closes. So we will pause our outrage for today, and that will be that. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it, Lex. And I did get your message. See, I remembered. What is that little groundhog, or is it a beaver? What was that? It was a groundhog. Okay, it's hard to tell. They kind of look the same on that thing. Anyway, just to reiterate, there's about 20 left. I'm going to go pack them, get them to the post office. Off they go. And I will see you all later. Don't forget, there's no book club on Sundays. I will see you on Monday for book club. Mwah! Bye, guys.